The world of Valaris looked like a lantern made of stone. Its capital, Asterhall, rose from a valley of pale crystal flats, each field cut by long black lines that formed courts for a famous sport. On calm days, the courts reflected the sky like glass. On windy days, the lines hummed like strings on a silver instrument. Visitors said the city seemed to sing. People of Valaris said the city was only breathing. Princess Lyra often stood on the balcony outside her study and watched the courts. She liked the way the players moved in triangles and arcs. She liked the way a serve began quiet and ended with a small clap as the ball struck a target plate. She liked the sound because she could read it. She could read most sounds. She could even read the light touch of air along her palm. The problem was not reading. The problem was moving like the others. She walked with steady care, placing more weight on her right leg than her left. The left leg did not always listen. The ankle sometimes wobbled. The knee locked without warning. Her left hand curled when she was tired. On the court, the game asked for quick turns and leaps in 3 directions. The court did not slow down for her. She knew this, and the court knew it too. The Tri-World Ball season was coming. It arrived. Every 8 years when Valaris met its 2 neighbors, Bareth and Loom, in a set of matches that were older than the great bridges and older than the carved river stairs. The games were not only sport. The winning world got first pick of trade routes for the next cycle. The losing world waited. The games also served a quiet purpose. They kept old arguments from returning to war. People put their pride into the courts, and for a while, it stayed there. The Royal Council met in a round chamber under a soft dome of blue glass. Lyra came to listen. She kept her hands folded over the arm of her chair, one finger tapping to keep time with her thoughts. Her father, King Orin, sat in his tall seat with a tired look and a gentle mouth. He was kind but weary in the eyes. Counselors spoke in careful tones. They used words that did not show fear and words that sounded like plans. Bareth has hired a captain of the old schools, said Lord Davor, who managed trade. For Drak, he is strict, and he teaches his players to force errors. They do not want long rallies, they want fast crashes. We can answer speed with strategy, said Mistress Hale, who trained young players. She pointed to a slate. Our best defender is Sio, our best server is Kelly, but our best court reader is the princess. Her sense is unusual. She can feel patterns most do not see. Heads turned toward Lyra with mixed looks. Some showed hope. Some showed apology before they even spoke. Lord Turvin, who kept the royal calendar and the law book, cleared his throat. The charter says the royal house must field a player or a sponsor each cycle. If we fail, we lose the old treaty. If we lose the treaty, our border villages will get less water and less ore. Ships will pay more to pass our routes. People will feel it. Lyra knew all this. She had read the charter many times. She had run her hand over the lines until she could recite them in the dark. Turvin glanced at the king with a worried face. We had hoped that this cycle the princess would stand as sponsor or player. The people expect it. The press expects it. The other worlds expect it too. Silence held the room for a moment. Lyra kept her back straight. She felt the steady weight in her left shoulder and the soft quiver that came when the fingers there grew tired. She knew what she could do. She also knew what she could not do without help that did not exist in the usual training rooms. She spoke so there was no shaking in her voice. I respect the charter. I know the stakes. But I cannot play as the game is played today. I cannot jump on demand. I cannot stop on a single toe and spin. I cannot chase a ball from the back line to the corner in the time the clock allows. If I try without the right support, I will fall and fail the team. So, I say this with care. I cannot play ball. Her words were simple. They were also final. No one in the chamber was cruel. No one said she owed the court her body. Still, Lyra watched hope go out of eyes that had come in bright. It hurt to look at that loss. It was not her fault, yet it felt like a stone under her ribs. The king did not speak right away. He had never forced her to be more than she was. He had never asked her to pretend. He folded his hands. He looked at the floor plan on the table. He looked back at his daughter. Then we must be clever, he said. We must find a way to honor the spirit of the game and the spirit of our people. If the game cannot bend at all, then perhaps our duty is to show the game that it should. A small cough sounded near the wide door. A guard stepped aside. A man stood there in a travel jacket the color of rain and boots with dust from the crystal flats still on them. He carried a narrow case on one shoulder and a small book in his hand. The guard said his name. Ethan Pike, from the Human Convoy, Your Majesty. He brings a report for trade. He also asked to watch the council if allowed. Humans were not rare on Valaris. They came with ships and tools and stories. They stayed a season or two. They left marks in the form of small machines and recipes for paints that did not fade. Most were polite. Some were loud. This one watched the room without pushing his presence into it. He had steady eyes. He did not look at Lyra with pity. He looked at the court plan like it was a map he had walked. "Let him speak if he has something to offer," said the king. Ethan bowed. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I am an engineer by trade. I tune instruments that measure wind and gravity. I also read rule books. It is a habit from home. On my way from the yard, I stopped at the League office and asked for the Tri-World rule book. It is long. I like long books." A few counselors smiled in spite of themselves. Ethan lifted the thin book in his hand. It was thin because the pages were made of metal foil that could hold small print on both sides. "I read the parts on equipment twice," he said. "There is a clause that is old and often forgotten. It was made when players from lower gravity worlds first came to high gravity courts. It allows assistive gear that balances for a world's difference, as long as the gear does not power the ball itself or move the player farther than their own strength provides. It also allows role sharing inside a team. A player may pass a strike to a designated partner when doing so follows a declared pattern that is shared with judges before the match." Mistress Hale leaned forward. "That clause has been asleep for years," she said. "People say it is a courtesy section. It is used to let Bareth use ankle weights on Loom's slow courts and to let Loom use grip shoes on ours. Nothing more." Ethan nodded. "Yes, but it is written in open language. It does not forbid an exo brace that stabilizes a joint. It does not forbid a tactile guide if the guide gives information that already exists in the air, like a faint vibration to mirror ball spin. It does not forbid a team pattern that lets a player wait for the right touch rather than chase the wrong one. The point is not to make the game easier. The point is to let skill speak in different ways." Lord Davor raised a brow. "You talk like a lawyer. I talk like a reader," Ethan said with a small smile. "And like a builder who wants to stay within lines. I do not like breaking rules. I like finding the space inside them." Lyra watched him while he spoke. Many people had offered her workarounds in the past. Most were kind but careless. They said they would fix her. They said she only needed to try a little harder and believe. They meant well. They also left her with the same body and a tired heart. Ethan's words did not try to fix her. They tried to fix the frame around her. "What is your plan?" she asked, "if we use that clause?" "I do not have a full plan yet," he said. "I have a direction. First, a light sleeve that supports your ankle and knee without forcing them. It would read your intent from small muscle signals and dampen the wobble when it starts. Second, a way to feel the court in a language you already speak. You read air better than most. You read sound. We can mirror ball spin and floor seams and quiet signals at your palm or forearm. Third, team patterns that move the choice to you. Instead of you chasing every ball, the team shifts in waves. You strike when the court presents the right window. All of this is legal if we declare it." Lord Turvin frowned. "Even if it is legal, the committee must approve, for Drac will protest." "Then we meet protest with clarity," Ethan said. "We tell them the gear does not push the ball and does not move the player farther than her own strength. We tell them the patterns are in the rulebook. We accept a test. We pass the test not by speed, but by precision. That is the only answer that convinces harsh ears." The king sat back. He watched his daughter, not the human. "Lyra," he said, "do you want to try this?" Lyra looked at the court through the window. On a distant field, someone served and missed. The ball clanged against the side plate. The sound was sharp and a little sad. She felt the old ache of being close to a thing and kept out by design made for bodies like hers on their best days and not like hers on most days. She also felt a small line of warmth at the center of her chest. It was the feeling that came when a puzzle edge finally touched another edge. "I will try," she said. "I will try if the goal is not to be like someone else. I will try if the goal is to show how I play when the court meets me halfway." Ethan did not nod fast or let out a rushed sigh. He nodded once like a craftsman who had just measured a board and found it true. "That is the goal," he said. "The game will not change if we—" The committee hall felt larger on the second morning. Light fell through high windows and drew bright rectangles on the polished floor. The chairs were still the same, the table still the same, the clock still steady on the wall. But Princess, Lyra felt the space hold more attention now. Reporters waited in the back row with quiet pens. 2 league technicians stood ready by a side door. Vordrak had returned in a dark uniform with silver trim. He watched the room like a man watching for a mistake that would prove a point. Ethan set the narrow case on the plain table in the center. He did not rush. He laid out the drawings. He placed the sleeve on a clean cloth. He set a small palm-sized box beside it. He looked at Lyra and gave a short nod. It said the same thing as yesterday. "We will go step by step." Nothing hidden. The chair of the committee lifted a hand. "We are here to examine your request," she said. "We will ask precise questions, answer in clear words. That will help us decide." "We will," Ethan said. "Begin with the sleeve," said another judge, a man with a thin scar near his temple, old and faded. "What does it do exactly?" Ethan kept his answers simple. "It listens to the muscles at the ankle and knee. When a wobble begins, it dampens the wobble so it does not grow. It does not push the leg forward. It does not add jump. It does not add speed. It only calms noise. Think of a handrail on a stair. The handrail does not carry you upstairs. It stops a stumble." The judge leaned in. "And the energy inside the sleeve?" "A small cell," Ethan said, lifting the little box. "This powers the sensors and the damping pads. The pads push against the sleeve, not the court. They do not move the player beyond her own strength. We can measure this in newtons if you like. It is under the limit written in your own equipment. Appendix." He slid a printed page forward with the passage marked in neat ink. The chair read it. She did not smile, but she did not frown. "Show us," she said. Lyra stepped forward. She let Mistress Hale fasten the sleeve at the calf and knee. The fabric felt cool and smooth. The small square under the outer seam warmed, at the edge as the sensor woke. "Walk, please," said the judge with the scar. Lyra walked the same way she always did, careful, with more weight on the right. The left ankle trembled on the second step the way it sometimes did. The sleeve answered with a steadying pressure that was not a push. It felt like a gentle thumb right where the tremble began. The tremble faded. She did not walk faster. She walked with less waste. "Now stop and turn," said the judge. She stopped. She turned, slow, to show the control she had, not speed she did not own. The pressure changed at the knee, tiny, correct, and then released when the joint found its place. Vordrak spoke from the side. "How do we know it does not add power in a jump?" Ethan kept his voice even. "We built a measure. Princess, please." Lyra placed one hand on a wooden frame that Ethan had set beside the table. It was a simple bar with a strap that ran to a small spring gauge. Ethan clipped the strap to a loop at the back of the sleeve. "Jump once in comfort," he said. "Then, jump with the strap. The gauge will show the sleeve's force. You will see it is only damping." Lyra bent her knees and made a small hop, the kind she would make at the back line to reset her balance. The gauge did not move. It was not attached, yet. Then Ethan clipped the strap and asked her to hop again. She did. The needle flicked, tiny, below the marked limit, and then settled. The committee technician bent to read the number. He checked Ethan's limit chart. He nodded to the chair. "Now the cues," the chair said. Ethan held up the palm-sized box. "We call this the tactile map. It does not whisper secrets, it repeats what the court already says. We use 3 legal sensors that are in many arenas already: microphones near the plates, pressure strips under the seams, and a wind meter in the air vent. These are public instruments. They do not push the ball. They only report. The map turns. The reports into tiny taps on the sleeve. One tap pattern means ball spin forward, another means spin backward. A short buzz means seam 3. A soft tick means a draft from vent 9. Princess Lyra already reads sound and air very well. This lets her read them with less guesswork. A different judge, older, asked, "So you are not putting radios in the ball?" "No, ma'am," Ethan said. "We would not. We will use the arena's own data feed, where available. If not available, we will place microphones in the same places any coach may place them. All of this will be declared in writing before any match." The chair turned to Lyra. "Princess, what do you feel when it is on?" Lyra reached for the map and held it. Ethan switched it to practice so it would read the demonstration ball. Mistress Hale rolled the ball across a test plate and set a light topspin with her palm. The map tapped a single, steady tick-tick-tick on Lyra's forearm. Lyra closed her eyes. The taps resolved into the shape of a slow wheel in her mind. "The taps are small," she said, "but they are clear. The ball seems to draw a line under my skin. I can tell if it will bite on the 3rd bounce or ride on the 4th. I can tell which seam is live. It does not make me stronger, it helps me waste less time." Vordrak raised a hand. "This is still coaching during play." Ethan shook his head. "It is not a coach. It is the court speaking in a language the player can feel. Any player could use it. Most do not need it because they see the spin with their eyes. The princess feels it with her skin. It is the same information, in a different path." The chair raised her palm to pause the room. "Enough. For now. You also filed a note about role sharing. Explain that." Mistress Hale took that part. "The rulebook allows a designated partner to accept a pass in place of a strike if the pattern is declared. We will declare a pattern called triangle. Hold. Co, our defender, will chase fast balls to the corner. Kelly, our server, will set small lobs to the center when the corner becomes a trap. The princess will stand in the read zone. She will choose the strike only when the map tells her that placement will speak louder than speed. We will share the heavy running. We will not remove the princess from responsibility. She carries the choice." Vordrak let out a low sound that was almost a laugh. "You will build a shelter around her." Mistress Hale kept her tone calm. "We will build a team around her. That is what a team is for." A younger judge asked, "Will this slow the game and make it dull?" "Watch us play," Mistress Hale said. "You will see it sharpen instead." The chair looked at the clock. "We have heard your design. We will now decide if a trial is proper." The judges leaned close and spoke in quiet voices that did not carry. Vordrak turned his head to the side wall where an old painting hung, as if the outcome had already been decided in his favor long ago. Lyra stood still. She kept her breath even. She felt the small weight of the child's play fair stone in her pocket. She felt the steady hum of the sleeve on her skin. The chair turned back. "We will allow a trial," she said. "The assistive sleeve and the tactile map pass equipment review on a provisional basis. The role-sharing pattern is legal if declared each match in detail." Vordrak looked as if he would speak, but the chair lifted a hand and continued. "However, we add a condition. Tomorrow you will run a skills trial on Court 4 against Captain Vordrak's selected squad. You must show you can compete without degrading the pace and spirit of the game. If you fail, the approval is revoked." The room felt as if someone had opened a window and let cold air in. Not unfair, not friendly. Sharp. "We accept," Lyra said before anyone could fill the space with fear. Ethan made a note on his pad with a pencil. He did not press hard. He did not try to read the judges' faces. He had work to do. They left the hall to a blur of clicks and questions. Reporters asked the same thing in 20 different ways. Is this a stunt? Will this make the league slow? Is this fair to worlds without engineers? Are you afraid of Vordrak? Lyra answered with the same clear lines. We will show our bolts. We will not hide our method. We will play fair and fast. Ethan answered in numbers when numbers were asked and in plain words when plain words were better. Back in the East Hall, the workshop already carried the bright smell of cut film and warmed resin. Sio and Kella were there, bouncing a ball back and forth in a slow rhythm while talking through possible traps. Mistress Hale drew triangles on a chalkboard and erased them and drew them again with new angles. Ethan set the sleeve on the table and opened the seam with a tiny zip tool. "We need a cleaner damp at the knee," he said. "You leaned forward twice when the map ticked seam 2. The sleeve read that as a wobble and corrected when it did not need to. "Can you teach it to wait 1 heartbeat before helping?" Lyra asked. "Yes," he said, "if we give it your pattern. Every player has a different way to say 'I'm fine.' We will teach the sleeve your way." He pulled a cable from the box and attached it to a small point inside the fabric. On his pad, lines moved like quiet waves. He asked Lyra to bend, to rest, to lift the foot, to circle the ankle, to tap her heel twice. The pad recorded the tiny signals. He named each wave with simple tags: ready, read, strike, rest. He set a small rule inside the sleeve's mind: do not help during read unless the wobble grows large. They tested on the small court behind the ivor trees. The trees rattled in a light morning wind, leaves shining. Ethan placed the map on Lyra's forearm. Sio served from the corner with a slow top spin. The taps announced it. Tick, tick, tick. Lyra did not rush. She let the ball travel, and then the low-gravity notice felt like a new page. It did not shout. It did not threaten. It simply said the match would be held in the low-G arena to ensure inter-world balance. Princess Lyra read the line twice, while the morning was still pale. Ethan read it once and nodded, the way a builder nods when a beam is heavier than planned but still possible to lift. "We will learn a new kind of balance," Lyra said. "Good," Ethan answered. "Then we begin now." The low-G arena sat on the eastern edge of Astor Hall, where the city met a ridge of wind-cut stone. The roof carried a glitter of small panels. Inside, the floor could be tuned to feel lighter than Valeris air, so visiting teams from softer worlds would not be punished by weight alone. It was fair, and it was tricky. People who trained at normal gravity often stumbled in the low-G room, because every step went farther than the body expected. A half-turn became a float. A short hop became a drift. Mistress Hale, Sio, and Kelly reached the arena first and stretched in a corner under the ivorleaf banners. 2 league technicians checked the dials on the wall. The dials were simple: a big wheel for gravity, a row of sliders for ventilation, a panel of switches for plate sensors and seam monitors. One technician greeted Lyra with a polite bow and turned the gravity wheel until the needle sat just below the middle mark. "Low G engaged," he said. "You will feel it in your knees first. Take care with your stops." Lyra stood on the court and let her legs speak to her. The floor felt kind but uncertain, like soft ground after rain. Ethan knelt to slide the sleeve over her calf, careful and exact. The little square at the seam warmed as it woke. "The sleeve must change its mind here," he said. "At normal weight, it calms sudden wobbles. In low G, your foot will overswing rather than wobble. If the sleeve fights that too early, it will throw you off more. I will give it a longer breath before it helps, and when it helps, it will help less." He drew a small cable from the box and tapped a few lines on his pad. He added a rule inside the sleeve's quiet mind. In low G, wait a little more, press a little less. He looked up. "We will test. Tell me the truth, even if it means we undo it." "I will," Lyra said. They started with a walk. Lyra placed her right foot down, then her left. The left went too far by a finger's width and then settled as the sleeve offered a small hold. She stopped. She turned. The turn wanted to glide on. She let it glide a little, and then felt the sleeves whisper at the knee, there and gone, enough to give her a clean end. It was not perfect. It was better than guesswork. Sio bounced a ball twice and tossed it to Kella. Kella set a high arc to the center, then laughed as it floated longer than it should. "The ball is a feather," she said. "Treat it like a feather with a hidden wire. Mistress Hale said. It looks light. It still obeys lines. The lines are just longer. Ethan lifted the tactile map and clipped it to Lyra's sleeve. The map will feel different too, he said. Spin will keep its music, but the timing will stretch. Do not chase the old rhythm. Let the new one tell you who it is. They tried a simple drill. Kella served a soft top spin to Lyra. The taps moved across Lyra's forearm. Tick, tick, tick. Slower, like a wheel turning in syrup. Lyra waited 1 heartbeat, then 2, then placed a light cut to seam 3. The ball drifted, obeyed, and landed with a small clap that sounded sharper in the empty space of low G. Again, Hale said. They ran the drill until the taps made sense again. Then Hale tightened the pattern. She called for triangle hold. CO chased, Kelly lifted. Lyra stood in the read zone and chose the strike window. The first 3 rounds worked. The 4th did not. Lyra called strike, cut thin and floated too long herself. Her center drift carried her half a step past comfort. The sleeve, set to wait, stayed polite. The drift turned into a spin and she ended up facing the wrong way. She laughed first. Then everyone else did because the laugh told them she was not hurt and not angry. New rule, she said. I will never brag about perfect turns. Ethan made a note. Add micro anchor for end of turn. He did not say the word anchor out loud yet. He stared at the floor and then at the shoes. For today, we can practice with textured insoles, he said. Legal for training, not enough to change the court. Just a little grip so your last inch is yours. He cut a thin pad from a material he carried for tools that should not slip. He set it inside Lyra's shoe. The change was tiny. On the next turn, the last inch felt like a place to stand instead of a place to slide off. He did not call it a solution. He called it a start. The first hour showed the common traps. Lyra reached too far twice. CO chased and found himself outside the line, then laughed and bowed to the chalk, as if he had left the stage and the stage had forgiven him. Kelly overlifted and sent a ball into the high net with a soft thunk. Hale clapped once each time, a sound that meant, I see it. Do it again. Better. Reporters did not come to morning practice. A few workers rolled carts along the upper walk. A pair of school children watched through the glass and copied the triangle hold with chalk on the walkway. The city was gently, curious but not loud. It would be loud later. Between drills, Ethan explained what low G did to the ball. He kept it simple. When Kella adds spin, the ball still wants to curve, but it curves longer, he said. When CO punches a save, the ball will travel farther even if he thinks he has barely touched it. Your eyes will try to lie to you. The taps will be honest but slow. Your body has to choose a new rhythm and trust it. Lyra listened the way. She listened to air and to halls at night. She watched dust on a sunbeam and saw how it didn't fall as fast. She placed her hand under a ceiling vent and felt the same breath move across her skin with less weight and more length. She closed her eyes and mapped the room with her wrist. They broke for tea and flatbread with herbs. While they ate, a courier arrived from the league office with a slim packet. He handed it to Mistress Hale and waited by the door with his cap in his hands. Hale read the note. It was short. Ventilation will be set to standard pattern for the match, she said, but sensors may be limited due to maintenance on plate. Microphones. They promise the clocks. They do not promise seam and vent data. She looked at Ethan. What does that do to the map? It cuts its voice in half, Ethan said. We can still mirror ball spin with our practice microphones, near the plates, but only if the arena allows it. If they ban extra mics today, we will have only the vent meter the arena runs. He lifted the map, turned it in his hand, then set it down. We should assume less data, not more. Lyra rubbed the edge of the sleeve with her thumb. I can still feel the air without numbers, she said. I have done that my whole life. You have, Ethan said. We will train for that too. The rest of the morning they played a strange game. Ethan switched the map off for 3 rallies. Lyra closed her eyes for a breath, lifted her palm, and read only the room. Draft, wait, the way sound wrapped around a fast ball. She missed 2 and made 3, and on the third made one so clean that CO stopped mid-chase just to watch it land. Ethan waited until he had 5 full pages of notes. Then he rolled the sleeve back a little and adjusted a delay by a fraction. I am teaching the sleeve to recognize your read posture faster, he said. In low G, you keep that posture a hair longer. I do not want it to help while you are reading. Helping during a read is not help. After noon, the arena staff allowed a short scrimmage against a junior team that happened to be training that day. The juniors were quick and excited, happy to be on the same floor as the royal house and also eager to test themselves against fame. They bowed too deep and then grinned and then tried to look stern. Treat us like any team, Hale told them. We need truth, not ceremony. They did. They served hard and low. They tried lobs. They punched lines. Lyra's team fell behind, early 5-1, mostly because each of them still had old gravity in their feet. Then CO found the right chase angle for this room. Then Kelly learned to lift with less arm and more wrist. Then Lyra stopped trying to look normal and returned to her quiet second, even in a room that pushed her patience. Hold, she called. Chase, CO said. Sure. Lift, Kelly said. Lighter now. Strike, Lyra said, and sent a thin cut to a plate the juniors had dared her to try. The ball drifted true. The juniors nodded as if they had just been given a small, polite lesson. They ended the scrimmage at 12-12 by agreement. It was not about winning. It was about learning. Everyone shook hands. The juniors left with eyes bright. Hale gathered her players and spoke softly. You do not owe Logie a drama, she said. It is just another room. Respect it, then be yourself in it. If the map goes quiet, you still have your sense. If the sleeve hesitates, you still have your choice. Triangle hold does not depend on gravity. It depends on trust. The courier returned in late afternoon with a second note. This one carried a small seal with a gear stamped on it. From the Guild of Wheelwrights and Floor Makers, he said, sounding proud to deliver it. Hale read it and smiled. They suggest a small textured tile to mark the back line so players can feel the line without looking, she said. They offer a sample and say it is within court rules if declared. Ethan lifted the sample from the envelope. It was a thin square with a pebble feel. Light, not sticky, not high. This is what I was thinking, he said. We will not glue it. We will lay it under the whistle cut the soft air. Low gravity made even sound feel lighter. The ball left Vordrak's server's hand and glided instead of dropping. It turned in a slow wobble, not a clean spin. CO moved first, fast feet, careful hips, because triangle hold started with him. He reached the corner, touched the ball in a controlled punch and sent it up. Kella stepped in and lifted. Her lift did not climb. It floated and kept floating, as low G always does. The ribbon at Lyra's wrist bowed left, then settled. She waited in the read zone. Strike, Lyra said soft, and cut the ball thin across seam 3. Clap on plate. 1-0. The crowd made a sound like a tide turning. It was not loud. It was full. They had worried that low gravity would turn good play into a slow dream. This first point answered that worry with a simple line and a clean end. For Drax, squad did not flinch. Their server smiled a small, respectful smile. The next serve came lower, harder, with a knuckle feel. In normal gravity, that ball would fall sooner and wobble less. Here it hung in the air, teasing. CO took 2 steps and saved it with a flat hand. Kelly tried another lift and overlifted. The ball kissed the very top of the high net and dropped back, 1-1. Mistress Hale clapped once, a single, even sound that meant, learn and go on. Lyra rolled her shoulders gently. The sleeve waited like a polite friend. The map was off by choice. The ribbon watched the air for her, thin as a grass blade, honest as a flag. They traded points, 2-2, 3-3. For Drac had trained his squad to use low G like sailors use tide. They slid into corners instead of stomping. They jumped not to rise but to float to a better line, then struck as they landed. It was quiet, and it was disciplined. Valaris matched them with patience. Lyra kept triangle hold simple. Hold, chase, lift, strike. The words fell into the room like stones in clear water, small ripples, steady rings. At 5-4 for Bareth, the first sharp trap came. Fordrak's defender faked a line strike and at the last breath cupped the ball. In normal gravity, a cupped ball would die at the tape. Here it died a little later. Co went for it and slid just past, his shoes whispering against the cloth. Slow. Your first step, Hale called in a low coach's voice. Let the drift show itself. Co nodded. The next rally, he did. The ball pretended to be dead, then showed its true path. He chased at the right moment and fired it up. Kelly, eyes narrow now, lifted just enough. Lyra waited one heartbeat longer than she did in normal gravity. The ribbon leaned at her wrist, left, then right, and then steadied as the air settled. She placed a soft slice behind the taller blocker. The ball obeyed. The crowd breathed out together. They met in the middle of the court for a quick touch of hands. Lyra looked at Co's eyes, calm, clear. Kelly's grin was small and quick. They did not say big words, they said enough. Points built like beads on a string. 8-8, 9-9. The chair of the committee watched the clock and the pace. She made 3 notes. Clean, no delay, spirit intact. The technician measured the sleeve's force 3 more times. It spiked lower than in normal gravity. The sleeve was helping less by design. He wrote that down next to Ethan's declared limits. At 10-10, Bareth changed servers. The new server used a toss that rode the room's small currents. He threw high, not hard. The ball rose and sailed on the gentlest of breaths, slower than slow, like a kite at the edge of its string. The ribbon on Lyra's wrist trembled and then settled. The ball's path seemed honest, then bent by a hair that would matter at the plate. Lyra almost moved early. Old habit, old gravity. But caught herself. The sleeve registered a tiny, almost wobble and did nothing. Ethan had taught it to respect her read. She waited, let the bend show itself fully, then cut to seam 5. The ball reached the plate at the last, changed again in the final, hand breath, low G playing one more trick, and kissed the edge. The clap turned into a hollow note, out by a finger's width, 10-11. Ethan wrote one phrase, final hand breath in low G, extra lie. He drew a small box around it. He lifted his eyes. Later, he told himself, not now. Vordrak pressed Plan A harder. Fast in the lanes they could not guard without sprinting. Co handled 2, then missed 1. Kella handled 1, then saved a second with her fingertips. Lyra, reading air and sound without map data, missed 1 low serve that flattened at the last. She did not hide the error. She watched the miss like a craftsman watches a cut that is off by 1 line. She told it to herself. I moved at the old moment. She decided on a new moment. Hale asked for a timeout at 11-13. In low gravity, even a timeout felt light. The players floated toward the bench and sat with care. Ethan knelt and checked the sleeve seams and the small square where the sensor lay. Any pinch? He asked. No, Lyra said. It is patient. I am the one who was early. Then we moved the line in your head, he said. He placed 2 fingers on the back of her hand, above the ribbon. Feel the air with the ribbon, then with your skin. Let the ribbon be a loud friend at the start, then ignore it at the end. Your skin will know the last inch better. Hale drew a new triangle on her small board. Triangle hold is still good, she said, but they are shifting to close your strike windows. We will add 1 idea without breaking the pattern. On the 3rd rally after a long float, we swap positions on purpose. Co take center for 1 cycle. Kella own the far seam. Lyra, slide 1 step right and choose your strike off their confusion. We call it Switch 3. We declare it to the judge now, they declared. The judge nodded, noted the pattern, and lifted a small flag to show both benches the declaration was official. Vordrak's assistant made a mark on a slate. Vordrak's eyes flicked only once toward Lyra's right shoulder. He had the face of a man who collected details and put them in quiet places. Play resumed. The server tried the kite toss again. The ribbon lifted, then hung. Lyra waited. The ball wanted to lie to her in the last inch again. She let it. Then she cut not to seam 5, but to the small square 2 hands left of the expected line. It looked wrong, until it looked beautiful. Clap on plate. 12-13. They ran switch 3 at the right time. Bareth misread their lanes and left. A seam open. Lyra found it. Kella, now at the far seam, took a hard punch and sent it high. Sio, now at center, did not sprint but shuffled, easy, owning space the old way. Points landed like raindrops off the edge of a roof. 13-13, 14-13. The crowd's sound lifted, then settled. Lyra heard it, allowed it to pass through her like wind through ivor leaves. She held her second before, the strike like a coin in her palm. Vordrak did what captains do when the other side finds a path. He changed the map. Plan B arrived like a quiet drum. Short rallies, quick drops, angle serves that dared the map to help. And the map was off. He also added small rule pressure that was legal and exact. He asked for a ball switch at 15. He asked the chair to note a delay on one of Valaris's longer holds. He did it all in a voice that sounded like fairness. The chair allowed the ball switch. She did not mark a delay. Pace is clean, she said without looking away from the floor. The new ball had fresh seams. Their small voices would have sounded different in the map, but the map had no voice today. Lyra ran her palm a thumb width along the ribbon as a reminder. Watch with skin. She caught the new ball's glide by the way the air cooled the back of her hand a breath earlier than before. She adjusted her weight by a hair. Her slice landed. 16-15. Ethan watched the vents louvers as much as the ball. He saw them twitch before each serve, a maintenance program puffing small regular breaths to keep the room even. Low and steady, almost nothing, almost. He started to count in his head. 1, 2, 3, puff. 1, 2, 3, puff. On the 4th, puff, the server tossed. The ball took that breath and curved a finger's width off the true line. He rose and walked to the edge of the coach's box. He could not shout instructions across the court during play. The league had made that clear. But he could say one sentence at the next pause. At 17-16, when the ball rolled out under the bench and a child tossed it back, he said it to Lyra as she passed. The vents keep time, he said. 3 slow, then a small breath. Lyra looked at his mouth, not his eyes. She watched the shape of the word 3. She nodded. She did not answer. She did not need to. The next serve, she counted inside. 1, 2, 3. Ribbon bow. She held. She called hold a hair longer. Sio chased later. Kella lifted lighter. Strike, she said, and carved the ball to a square that matched the breath she had felt. 18-16. If the map had been on, the taps would have made little notes along her skin. Today the ribbon and the vents and the soft hairs along her forearm were enough. Her body wrote the notes for her. Vordrak went to Plan C in full. He stayed smooth. He carried the dignity that made people listen, and then he squeezed every seam of the rules he could find. He asked for towel breaks at the limit. He asked the chair to confirm that the ribbon counted as part of uniform. It did. They had declared. Then he asked for the sleeves force measure mid-set. The technician took the gauge reading. It sat well under the limit. The chair lifted her palm once. Play on. The score reached 19-19. The match had become something good. Not a contest of pity, not a theater of tech, but a proof that a game could widen without losing its edge. People. The horn light went green. The room found a new breath. Not the neat 1, 2, 3 of a machine, but the soft, living kind a city makes when people hold still and think the same thought. The ribbon at Lyra's wrist stirred and then lay quiet, as if it too were listening. The ball hung in the air for a tiny beat. Lyra lifted her palm and felt the small weight press against her skin. She did not rush. She loved this slice of time, the second before the strike, because it told the truth. No noise, no hurry, only choice. Strike, she said. Her wrist turned a half-degree. The cut was thin and honest. The ball's skin took the shape she gave it. It drifted on the room's changed breath and bent late, just at the last inch, where low gravity liked to tell one more lie. It met the plate with a sound that was soft but final. Clap on plate. 21. For a heartbeat, no one shouted. The whole arena held its breath again, like the moment after a bell is struck but before the ring spreads out. Then the chair of the committee lifted her hand and said, calm and clear, point, set. The wave of sound that followed was not wild at once. It rose the way water rises when the moon pulls it. It rose honest. It rose warm. People stood without meaning to. The high rose shimmered. Even the technicians at the control panel allowed themselves a small clap. A few ivor leaves near seam 2 turned slowly, then settled, as if satisfied. Princess Lyra did not throw her arms high. She did not dance. She let her breath out and let her shoulders fall to their usual place. She touched the ribbon with a fingertip, the way one might touch a friend's sleeve. Sio slapped Kella's palm twice and laughed in a low, surprised sound that he did not try to hide. Mistress Hale closed her eyes for 1 second and then opened them, steady as ever but smiling now. Vordrak walked from his line across the soft floor. He did not hurry. He did not look crushed. He looked like a man who had seen something new and was measuring it with respect. He stopped in front of Lyra, bowed a careful bow, exactly as deep as he should and no deeper, and held out his hand. His palm was firm and dry. Fair play, he said, kept at pace, kept with clarity. Lyra took his hand. Fair play, she answered. Her voice had no tremble. It did not need one. She added because it felt right. Thank you for pressing us. You made us honest. He gave the smallest nod, almost just a blink. You and your engineer made the old rule breathe, he said. We will prepare for that breath next season. They let go. He returned to his bench and spoke to his squad in a low tone that did not accuse. He pointed to chalk marks. He drew a tiny triangle on his palm with a finger and then erased it. A private promise to study. The chair of the committee stood and spoke into her small mic. Her voice reached every row without shouting. The match is concluded, she said. Valaris wins by 1 point. The provisional approvals for assistive sleeve, tactile cues from public sensors, uniform ribbon, and declared role-sharing patterns are confirmed for this season. The League will publish an access appendix by sundown to make these provisions clear for all worlds. By sundown, the technician repeated to a clerk, because words like that need to be written when the promise is hot. Ethan closed his hand around his pencil and then put it behind his ear, as if his fingers needed something to do now that the work inside them had no more immediate task. He walked to the edge of the coach's box and, when it was proper, stepped onto the court. He did not run to Lyra. He stopped at 2 paces, so she could take the first step if she wanted. She did. She laid her palm on the sleeve where the little square lay under cloth. It waited when I was reading, she said, a quiet light under her words. It held me only when the ground lied. That is all I needed. That is all a tool should ever do, Ethan said. He did not say more because the rest did not belong to him. He let the moment belong to the player and the team and the city that had watched itself learn. Sio came behind them and hugged Lyra sideways, careful, because everyone on the team knew her balance and her pride. Kelly put her forehead to Lyra's shoulder for a second and said nothing, because some parts of joy are private and clean without words. Mistress Hale joined them and tapped the board against her leg as a habit, and then laughed at herself because there was nothing left to draw. A small group of children on the upper walkway pressed their hands to the glass and drew triangles with their fingers in the air. One held up a square stone. Lyra touched her pocket and felt the Playfair stone answer. She lifted her palm to the child and then placed it over her heart. The child copied her, very serious. The king stepped down from the council row, but he did not walk onto the court until the judges had finished their notes. He waited for the right place. He had learned that from years on, a throne where people watched small timings and judged them as harshly as big choices. When the chair lowered her hand and the technicians closed their lids and the public had had their first cheer, he crossed the floor with the calm stride of a man who loved his daughter and also loved his people. He embraced Lyra with care, not too long, not too short, aware of the cameras and more aware of the small beating heart that had stood in front of a room full of rules and asked them to see her. "You do not owe the court your body," he whispered, in her ear. "Thank you for giving it your mind." "Thank you for giving me time," she returned. Reporters gathered as they do, like birds finding the warm roof on a cold morning. The first question was the kind that wants a big quote. "Princess, what do you say to people who think this victory is only because of devices?" Lyra did not flare. She did not look to Ethan. She did what she had done all week. She told a simple truth. "I did not wear power on my leg," she said. "I wore patience." The sleeve stopped a wobble when it began. The ribbon told me which way the wind blew. My team shared the run. The skill was ours, not the gears. If anyone wants to use the same tools, the league will publish how. We will even hold a clinic. Mistress Hale nodded at that last word and made a mental note. Clinic. A good word to turn into a good day. Another reporter turned to Ethan. "Human engineer," she said, because some people still use titles, like that as if they were names. Was this about bending rules? It was about reading them, Ethan said, still plain. And about reading air. The rule never banned steadiness. The court already spoke. We let it speak in a way a certain player could understand. If you want a neat headline, write this: "Skill is not a shape." The reporter blinked, wrote, and did not try to make him say more. The simplest lines are often the sharpest. By the time the first wave of questions ended, the league clerk had already set a stack of single-page notices on a table near the exit. The top line said, in a font no one would call exciting but everyone would call clear, "Access Appendix A, Assistive Equipment and Role Sharing." Under it, in short paragraphs, were the rules the chair had promised, the sleeve limits, the source of cues, public censors only, or passive cues like cloth and dust, the way to declare patterns like triangle hold and roll wave, the note about anchor tiles. Teams may lay thin, passive texture under the back line cloth to help players feel the line with the foot. Tiles must not alter bounce. Tiles must be declared. Hale lifted a copy and traced the line about tiles with a finger. "Guild will be happy," she said. Ethan exhaled a breath he had been holding in his chest and had not admitted to himself. The tiles had been under the cloth today, legal and quiet. A whisper at the last inch. He had not needed to name them during the match. The best tools do not ask for thanks in the middle of the work. Outside the arena, the city reacted in the small ways that show what people value. A baker under the East Bridge stamped little pebble marks on the crust of round loaves and called them backline bread. A wheelwright painted a new sign that said, "We make things that hold steady when the ground lies." A teacher took a piece of ribbon from a spool and tied it to the window latch so her students could see the air move while they read. By evening, the Star Courier front page showed a clear picture. Lyra in the read zone, palm up, ribbon bending, ball still, in flight, the tiny second before the clap captured without glamour. The headline did not shout, it said, "Treaty held, game grows." Under it, smaller, "League issues access appendix, clinics announced." Those clinics were not a plan that would wait. Hale set the first one for the very next morning in the Logie Arena. The notice said, "Open practice, any player may come, no fee, tools on the table, bolts in the light." Sio and Kellis signed their names under the line that said volunteers. The junior team from yesterday asked if they could help. Hale wrote back yes and underlined it with a smile drawn in chalk. Night came. The palace windows made soft squares on stone. Lyra and Ethan walked the long hall together, quiet. They did not need to fill the air. They came to the balcony outside her study, the one where she had watched the courts since she was small. The city's evening hum lay under everything like a low drum. Somewhere, far off, someone clapped a ball against a plate twice, not to show off, just because the sound was a good, clean sound to make. Lyra took the Playfair stone from her pocket and set it on the flat edge of the balcony, where the first light would find it in the morning. She slid it back and forth until it sat without wobble.